You know, sometimes I really hate being right. What's up, guys? I'm here on my channel, Geared Inc., where I get to share what I'm passionate about with you. To my channel, that's PC Tech, Games, and Gear. And for you guys who don't know, today was the first day of CES with AMD and NVIDIA releasing some pretty, cool things, but obviously there's some bad news mixed in. I'm going to get into it, but this is going to be a more straight to the point, gamey-centric video. So if you want to watch the actual, full video to get the context of what I'm talking about, both of them will be linked down below, but let's dive right in. So AMD led the charge, talking about all the wonderful things they've been able to do with their company, and hats off to Lisa Su being able to create, what essentially is a company that is dominating the market that it's in today. Basically, she had some back and forth with companies like Microsoft, HP, etc. But the big things they were releasing and talking about were the new laptops coming out with Ryzen 5000 processors. These are going to range from mobile solutions for those who are looking for something compact and good on battery life, all the way up to, more desktop level grade, CPUs. Although, check when you buy these things, because the naming SKU for things like the 5900X, it's not the same for the 5900HX in terms of the amount of cores and threads you're going to be getting. So make sure that you're looking at that if you end up buying any of these new products, which will be coming out over the next couple of months. She did mention a little bit in terms of gaming that new GPUs are most likely on the way, but we don't know kind of like what's going to fill in the stack, and there's no ETA. One thing that was very clear is that shortages for AMD appear that they're going to continue into the first half of this year, which was something I speculated in the last video that I had. But that appears like it is going to be the case. Something that nobody liked to hear is that there are two specific CPUs, the 5900 and 5800 respectively, non-X variants are going to be coming out. However, they're only going to be for OEMs, which means pre-built for the time being. That doesn't mean they always will be, but man, I mean, obviously, if you're a PC enthusiast, buying a pre-built is like the ultimate sin most of the time, but they're starting to look pretty good because they're like one of the only ways to get some of this new hardware, both CPUs and GPUs. Now, NVIDIA is a whole other bag. So first off, there was a continually, big drill down on new RTX being the new standard, multiple times. Now, here's the thing. If you're not part of the tech news cycle and you didn't know, there was some very big controversy where NVIDIA essentially picked on is the nicest way to say it, although it's way worse than that, with a specific tech reviewer, and essentially Linus got involved. It was this whole mess, but basically NVIDIA is really trying to push this narrative that RTX is like the future, and while I believe it is not nearly as widely adopted as what they want it to be, and it's honestly not nearly as big of a deal in the current gaming market as they want it to be, and that's just the truth. Now, DLSS 2.0 is something I can actually get behind, because if you actually have been able to experience it, it's quite good. Like, it's really good now at doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is essentially making the image crisper while, essentially reducing the amount of burden in your GPU, replacing essentially what anti-aliasing did before. Now, here's the thing. When I play Cyberpunk, which I do still, I'm actually one of the few who probably enjoyed that game. I never leave ray tracing or DLSS on, because even though I have a 3080, I was one of the very few lucky to get that like an MSRP. It's really not worth it for honestly, the lighting, the shadows, it all looks great, but it's just in its current form, the performance hit is still too great, even with DLSS turned on. So I never use ray tracing like in any games, unless it's just like a quick flick and be like, oh, that's pretty, and then I move on. Now, as far as the other news for NVIDIA, they were talking about their new RTX 3000 cards being available for laptops. There's a ton of laptops going to be coming out for them starting near the end of this month and then going further on down the line. But the big reveal from NVIDIA was a new GPU, specifically the 3060. Now, the way they frame this thing is kind of weird, because they talk about it having double the restoration of a 1060, which is obviously kind of a given. And again, they focus very heavily on the fact that this thing is going to provide a better ray tracing experience with DLSS 2.0 turned on than the previous generation of cards. Coming in at 330 with tax, basically, or 330 before tax, I should say. This card is meant to be more like a mid and grade card that can play all AAA titles at like 60 FPS. In terms of restoration, it looks like it's going to fall somewhere between maybe a 2060 Super and a 2070, which is nothing to sneeze at, especially for the price. But their continued emphasis on ray tracing and DLSS and rather than restoration, I mean, that's just going to be the beat that they're going to march to moving forward, because it's something that they're very, very, very much trying to push into the market, whether we want it or not. But again, the big takeaway, both of these companies don't plan on being able to meet their stock, for what they need. This is something they both acknowledge for months. Like, so if you're trying to get this new hardware, it could very well be April, May, maybe even summer before we're able to get our hands on this. And that whole time, as I said previously, they're going to be adding new product stacks, which are going to increase demand for, you know, the silicon that they're using for all these different chips. So I don't know if we're going to see a downgrade in terms of being able to actually get a hold of this stuff for quite a while to come. So there you have it, guys. That's kind of a quick and dirty video on what was going on with CES. What were the two most important things as far as that came out of this for both AMD and for NVIDIA, as AMD is getting, you know, some new CPUs and new laptops. NVIDIA is getting a brand new GPU and some new laptops as well. If you liked this video and thought it was helpful, go ahead and leave me a big thumbs up. If you thought it was trash, leave me a thumbs down. Remember to get subscribed and hit that bell icon so you know when these videos drop next. As always, thanks to everyone who continues to support these videos. I have no idea when our new house is going to be built, so I'm going to continue to make them even though I'm making them in this little room because I love my channel. I love making content, and I'm going to continue to make it whether you watch it or not, but I hope you do. And I hope to see every single one of you next time here on Geared Inc.